This is Linux Mint 18.3 Cinnamon. It is codename Sylvia. And the system requirements for this are 1 GB of RAM for minimum and 2 recommended for comfortable usage. 15 GB of disk space with 20 recommended. And the resolution, this is the minimum, but it's really not the minimum. It's just the minimum that it can really work with well, because on the low resolutions you have to actually drag the windows if they don't fit. Linux Mint was mainly developed and released by Clement Lefebvre in France in 2006. It is a mainly Ubuntu-based distro with Debian-based distros down the line, and it was meant to modify Ubuntu and achieve elegance to it, because Clement thought that Ubuntu was not perfect. The first version was called Ada. That was released in 2006, and by the 17th version, 2014, nicknamed Kiana, it was the start of the long-term support releases for Linux Mint, and this is a outdated website page. So it was most recent for this point was Rafaela in June 30th. Linux Mint uses the Grub bootloader, specifically Grub 3, and it is a great bootloader for dual boot OSs and machines. If you ever need root privileges or admin privileges or superuser privileges when you're on Linux, just type in console sudo /s to get into superuser. When you're doing your install, it will ask you to create a root password, and when you do this command, it will tell you to put the password in. It will not show up with the letters. It will be blank as if it wasn't typing, but it is typing. When you hit enter, and if it's correct, you will end up with this red mint, and that means you're a super user. Linux has a lot of commands that you can utilize. Some of them are completely different from Windows commands. Some of them are the same, and some of them are slightly different. We're going to start with one of them that are slightly different, ifconfig. It will show you your IPv4 address, your broadcast address, Ethernet adapter, subnet mask, IPv6, max transmission unit, your loopback address. Another one that we have is dig. It is a NS lookup tool, so you can see all the host records. Next one we have is ping, which is exactly the same as a Windows one. It will ping Google. With Linux, it will ping it forever until you stop it. With Windows, it pings it 4 times on default. In order to stop it from keeping going, Control-C will stop it instantly. If you ever need to change your network connection settings, go down to the bottom right, hit Network Connections, then hit the connection, and then Edit. And I'm also going to show you how to enter a DNS and a domain. So you're probably already on automatic. Go to manual if you're going to add a manual address. There's my address. Netmask would be 255 that. Gateway would be that. So we could put in a DNS server. I'm going to put in a DNS server that I know. And hit save. And then when you try and connect to a network share, it will ask you for your login credentials. And then you can have it remember you or not. Linux Mint comes pre-installed with all these different applications. A lot of them are basic ones. There's graphics for any kind of images. There's accessories, that random stuff that you might need, like calculator. Check your disks you might need to go to a file manager, image viewer, screenshot, text editor. Internet, it comes pre-installed with Firefox and all these other things. It has LibreOffice. It has these 2 things installed, and you can install multimedia codecs. And then administration, these are all basically your actual system tools, like backup, disk usage, driver manager. If you're running Mint in live mode, which is when you're running it off of disk or USB and it's not actually installed yet, you will hit this to install it. Configure login window, printers, software manager, the sources for the manager, system monitor, your terminal, update, groups. Preferences are more control panel kind of accessories like backgrounds and disks, firewall, fonts, general settings, network connections, power management, system info, system settings, sound. And then places are just the usual folders that you have in Windows that come pre-configured. Linux Mint is my favorite Linux distro. I recommend it to everybody, inexperienced or experienced. It's an easy OS to learn, and it is commercially supported. It has long-term support, and this particular version came out only 27 days ago. Mint also uses Ubuntu long-term support, so when Ubuntu long-term support gets released, then the next version comes out for Linux Mint with the Ubuntu long-term support in the code.